So I will jump in and I will sort of do a basic walkthrough of some of the basics and then hopefully be able to add more things in here for those of you who are already familiar. And we're really small. Please feel free to jump off mute, ask questions, type something in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with, and happy to sort of steer this in whatever direction is most useful to this group. So I'm going to share my screen here. And well, I'll start off by mentioning that Snorkl has a free tier, and anyone can get in there and use Snorkl with their students for free. It's on there's some it will always have a free tier, and there's ways that you can use it on an ongoing basis at that free tier. And then we also have school and district premium accounts. So everything I'm going to show you here to start off with is all part of that free experience. So you can go to snorkl.app and where you can sign in, you can create an account. From here, it's the teacher homepage. You have a few different options. You can try a Snorkl activity as a student. You can find something in our library, or you can create your own. So I want to just show you what a Snorkl activity looks like. So I'm going to go to try a sample activity. And I'm actually going to choose one of my favorite sample activities here, which if you've seen me demo this before, you've seen this activity because I demo this one a lot. This is a fourth grade math question. And this is what it looks like in Snorkl. So we have content K-12, math, science, ELA. Social studies is coming here later this month, the month of April. So we're really excited to start rolling out social studies content. We also have content for world languages, and teachers can create their own content. So Snorkl can be used in any classroom with any content. When students open up a Snorkl activity, they see the question from their teacher on a whiteboard, and they've got different tools to respond. So students can draw, they can highlight, they can type out text. And part of what makes Snorkl so powerful and unique is we actually encourage students to record and explain their thinking. So this is more than a chat bot. This is more than typing your answers into a box. This is about getting students talking, justifying, taking ownership of their thinking and learning. So I'll do this as a quick demo here of what it might look like for a student to solve this question. I'm actually going to make some mistakes just because it's more interesting that way, and then I'll show you what happens. So I press this purple record button. Snorkl begins recording my voice, and it will record what I'm doing on the screen. And teachers are doing this whole class in their classrooms as a formative assessment, exit ticket, do first, small group practice, large group practice, all sorts of things, and sometimes as homework. So here it goes. It says that Tyler's going to make a rectangular frame whose length is 29 centimeters. What will the width of Tyler's frame be? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to label one of the sides as 29. And I know that on a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So I'm going to label this opposite side also as 29. 29 plus 29, I think that adds up to, I think that's 48. And it says that the total perimeter is 146. So I'm going to do 146 minus 48. And that gives me 98 centimeters. So I think that Tyler's frame must be 98 centimeters wide. All right, I got that wrong a number of different levels. I didn't add 29 plus 29 correctly. I also didn't divide by 2 at the end to find how large each of those widths would be. But there were several things in my thinking process that went right. And so when I press that submit button, Snorkl begins analyzing both my voice and what I put on the whiteboard to give me personalized feedback on my response. It's going to score me and then give me 2 or 3 pieces of unique feedback. So here's what it says. It says that I got this incorrect. I got a 2 out of 4 for my explanation. I get some specific praise around what I'm doing correctly. And then I am asked to go back and check my addition on 29 plus 29. And I'm asked to go back and think about the fact that this has 2 widths. How could we find the length of just 1 width, right? So we are trying to mirror here what great feedback looks like from a teacher. We're trying to praise what's going right, celebrate the student thinking, even if they got the wrong answer. We're trying to give them specific feedback about what they can go back and check and not give away the thinking, but really ask them questions and keep the thinking on students. And this is a huge part of how we just orient ourselves to AI is this is AI that's doesn't take students as blank canvases that we need to fill up. It takes students as our students have something meaningful and rich that's worth sharing and worth celebrating. We're going to let them share it. And then we're going to use AI on top of that to give them meaningful feedback, praise, and support them. That's what it looks like for students. They can listen to that out loud. and they can actually use that respond again button to re-record and improve their response. You can do this with a kindergarten activity counting. You can do this with a calculus question, solving a free response AP question. You can do this with a chemistry problem, a biology question, reading and annotating a text, responding to open-ended questions. The possibilities are endless, but this all centered around how do we get students talking, explaining more, and then give them really personalized feedback. I'm gonna pause right there. Happy to answer questions. Yeah, Wayne, jump
Yeah.
in.
Quick question. So,
Yep.
like, on the part that you recorded, like your voice versus what you wrote, are those two scores, like answer and explanation, are those separated by those two different things, or is this an integrated
Good
feedback?
question. Great question. It's integrated. So that the score and the correctness is going off of both what I said and what I'm putting on the screen. And so there are some options, especially if you're doing Snorkel for like a writing activity. You can have students just type their response without the audio and give feedback on their writing in that way as well. Yeah. Other questions? Really popular question we get a lot is about languages. Students can record in Snorkel in over 40 different languages. Snorkel will understand students thinking in any of those languages, and Snorkel can actually give them feedback back in any of those languages as well. And so, as far as supporting new to country students, really powerful and amazing. I had a teacher down in San Diego I was talking to the other day. He had a brand new student in his classroom, just moved from Mexico, didn't speak a word of English. They were doing a Snorkel activity in class that day for math. And she sat down, she recorded herself in Spanish. She was the first one in class to get a 4 out of 4. And the teacher said the look on her classmates' eyes or faces when they saw that was they didn't know it. They didn't realize that she was actually quite smart and gifted in math, and they had made some assumptions, perhaps as a young kids sometimes do. But it was a really positive experience for her and for her classmates. Great questions, Irene. Yeah. So we don't have a full classroom integrate or Google Classroom integration, but you can share a link, and I'll show that here in just a second. Students are sign in with their Google or their Microsoft account, and they're automatically added to their Snorkel class roster. So let me jump over here then to that teacher side. This is what it looks like for a teacher. So you see all your student work across the class. As in real time, as students are submitting it, AI is automatically scoring it. It's popping up here in real time. You can take your cursor and quickly drag over and actually preview what the student said in that response. So you get a real quick way of glancing over that work. You can, of course, jump into individual student responses and review the feedback that your students are getting. And we know that as teachers, it's important to know not just what are our students' scores, but what are our students' actual gaps in their understanding, what's going well and what still needs attention. And so the Insights tab here will actually show you some trends in the student thinking across the class. It will highlight for you what are your top exemplars from across the class and who has submitted exemplary work. And then what are some of the mistakes that students are making and which students are making those mistakes. And so you can instantly identify who you might pull for small groups or where you might go next to support those students. So Snorkel will do this automatically again for any type of activity that you put in here. And so our library, let me show you just a few examples here. You can do this with a open-ended question about social studies or history. You can do this where students are actually annotating a text. Maybe they need to highlight, underline key information. They can record their response or type their response. You can do this with a Spanish activity explaining relationships or telling a story, and you can set the criteria for success for your students. So teachers have a lot of control over what the AI is looking for in a student response. I'm going to go back to the Snorkel homepage here and show you a little bit more of what's in the library and how you can create your own as well. So in the Snorkel library, we've got kindergarten through 12th grade math, science, and ELA content pre-created. It is standards aligned, and within the next couple of weeks here, we're rolling out the ability to actually search by standards. So everything will be tagged by both state standards and Common Core standards so that you can search and some Canadian standards too, so that you can search by standards and find the appropriate content. The social studies content is coming soon. There's world language, and then there's a handful of other variety of of materials in there. So those are all pre-created activities. If you open up any of these grade levels, it's sorted by topic. You can do a top level search as well. And then it's got different places where you can jump in. Teachers can use these directly with their students. They can also add them to their library and edit them themselves. If you do assign a Snorkel activity, it's super simple to share with students. You select a class, and a class is basically just like a folder in Snorkel where that student work is going to go. And then you hit the assign button and you get a link or a join code, and you can copy and paste that to Google Classroom. You can post this on the whiteboard. You can post it on Canvas, whatever your LMS is. Really simple to share with students and get them started. Students then sign in with their Google or their Microsoft account, and they're automatically added to your class roster so that every time they come back to Snorkel, they can see any new activities you've assigned, any of their oldest activities that have been in there. So it saves their work, and you can actually see a dashboard of student work over time. It's like a gradebook type of view that allows you to quickly and easily monitor student progress. I'm going to pause and take another quick break here. And then the last thing I want to make sure I share is how you can make your own Snorkel activities as well. For folks who have used Snorkel before, have I shared anything that you didn't know yet? And if not, I'm going to challenge myself here to share some more obscure things.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, please. Lynn.
About the feedback, if a student selects like a different language to
Yeah,
get their feedback in, as a teacher, like how would I, like would it be in that their home language or would it convert to my language?
great,
English.
great question. Let's see if there's an easy way for me to demo that. Yeah. All right. So if I give my feedback in a different language, there's a really simple way for for teachers. The short answer is it's yes, it's really simple for teachers to translate that back to English. So I'll submit this real quick. We'll get our feedback here back in Danish, and then I'm going to go to the teacher side. And while that's happening, I'm going to switch my language back to English. And once this pops up here, it should let me translate that back to English really quickly and easily so students can see it in their language that they need. And then as a teacher, you can quickly and easily see it in the language that you need. If students recorded it in a different language, you can also actually translate their transcript really simply. I'll also mention that we have world language activities, and on world language activities, it requires students to respond in that language as opposed to, they can't get away with responding in English on a Spanish or German assignment. And so it's requiring the language when it's a world language activity. We also use special tools to analyze the audio of their recording in different ways when it's a world language or when it's a reading fluency activity, so that I can actually give feedback on pronunciation and intonation as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah. This
Did you?
example is not loaded, so it's not doing me any good. But yeah, go ahead, Seth.
Well, no, this is a great tool. I'm just trying to think of how to incorporate into our program. We have a 15-to-1 ratio for 8 credit after school students. It's a math teacher that is highly qualified, but they may be recovering intermediate algebra, algebra 2, geometry. So there's all these different math courses in there. So being able to use this for them to go over before taking a unit test again is a great tool. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about this. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks for joining. I think it's sort of special to be able to give every kid really immediate feedback. And like I mentioned before, we see a lot of students are trying Snorkel activities multiple times. And I think it's because the feedback is really immediate. It's also because they feel some sense of ownership over it. It's their voice as opposed to just a number they typed into a box. And so I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
if I were to apply this in a social studies class, or if I was a world language teacher, and I want my kids to just do the oral part, not the drawings and not the writing, how does that work if they're all speaking at the same time? Doesn't the microphone pick up every other's voice? Does one have to speak at a time? How does that work?
Yeah, it actually does remarkably well. So we use an AI tool to capture the student's voice, and it does a pretty good job of isolating that single student's voice and following it through the length of the recording. And so, if you were to take a look at that transcript and like take your, preview what the student had said, you'll see usually it is just what that student said. Even if you listen to it, there might be all this background audio, but Snorkl has picked up and followed that one student's voice. So short answer, we have a lot of teachers who do use it. I would say the vast majority of users are using it whole class, everyone at once, and their students are recording. Some will use headphones, some will have kids spread out. There's, depending on your class needs or class size, folks will do different things, but it does work in a classroom full of folks. I've gone to noisy coffee shops and bars and tested it in those settings as well. Not that our students are going to be testing it in bars, but
Or if I could just follow up one other. So AP classes, I know you'd mentioned works fine in AP math, but what about all the other AP classes? I mean, there should be no limitation there, right?
no limitation. And one of the really important things, and I'll show this here in a moment, is how you customize what you want to set up for the criteria for success. Like you as the teacher have a lot of control for setting that criteria. So you can make it very rigorous or not very rigorous. And actually AI is going to, I'll show you this process, but AI will generate it for you. So you have a sample and then you can make adjustments from there. Jessica, does that follow the lines of your same question too?
Yeah, that was the question because I've done some math problems in there, so I guess like there's one answer possible, so I didn't have to input like what I was looking for as an answer, but that's the question.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so when you're creating an activity, you can add content to this whiteboard. Teachers can upload their own questions. They can type it directly on the board. Peter, for you. We'll do some social studies. Right, and I think what makes this question sort of interesting, at least on this level, is because obviously, if you're teaching, you might talk about the American Revolution to a fourth grader, or you might talk to a senior in high school about the American Revolution, and so what you might expect might be different. So you can put content on that whiteboard. You can also copy and paste images, short text passages, whatever content you want, and then scroll down. And underneath the AI feedback settings here, this big purple generate from question button, the AI will analyze what you just put on the whiteboard to set up an answer key and criteria for success. And so here it's identified what we just put on the whiteboard as a social studies question for middle school. There's the question, and then it gives a nice list of things that we might look for in a student response. Now, here's where that piece of teacher control comes in. Maybe we didn't talk about enlightenment ideas. And so that's actually not something I really want my students to be guided towards. I don't want to look for that in student answers. They can take that out. Maybe we actually talked a lot about taxation without representation. And so I might say something like students must mention taxation without representation. And then these others are optional. And so some pretty simple prompting can really go a long way as far as guiding the AI towards what you're looking for in those student responses.
I wonder if we tested it to try to avoid an American bias, point of view bias, and said something along the lines of what caused it was the illegal and unwillingness of the colonists to pay their fair share taxes or something like that. Would it work? I'm just curious.
That's really interesting. My hunch is it would. I haven't tested it in this context, and obviously, the way AI works is it's sort of there's a lot of probabilities in there, but this should guide what it's looking for, and so that should set the criteria for what you just described.
Thanks.
Jessica, you mentioned you used it with some math activities. Curious, were you recording audio along with that?
Yeah, I didn't test it with the students, so the students in the penitentiaries don't have internet, so we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But I imported a picture of a cube with dimensions and it got like the whole thing right, and I was looking for like the mass and then said it was like aluminum, and it did like all of what it was supposed to do. So it's really good.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. One thing I do often tell folks is if you are putting something on this page that is like a more complex geometric image, this is not very complex, but let me just grab a math question. And then you press that generate from question. I always encourage folks, especially if it's very visually complex, double check the AI's work. If it's complex geometric shape or figure, it can misread that a little bit. And that doesn't mean you can't use that question with Snorkl, but it does mean that you want to double check it and make adjustments, because this answer key is again going to guide how it gives feedback. So as long as this is set up okay, then the question should be good to use with your students. Yeah. One other thing I'll mention here, because I think this is really important, is if you've created an activity, you can share that activity with your colleagues. So Snorkl allows teachers to share links of different activities. You can post it in a Google Doc or an email or social media, wherever you want to share that Snorkl activity, and other folks can log in and use it with their students. They won't have access to your student work, but they'll have access to that activity that you built in Snorkl. Later this spring, we're building out school and district libraries as part of our premium account, so you'll have abilities to actually share activities within the platform. Premium accounts also have access to something we call Snorkl Coach. Snorkl Coach is an AI tool that can actually see students' whiteboards, read the whiteboard aloud to them, translate it directly from the whiteboard, and they can ask the questions prior to recording. And so the idea is really to give them access to a tool that can give them extra support. Really critically here, you notice that the record button is gone when Snorkl Coach is open, and this is intentional. We want students to get the help that they need, and then when they're done, they still need to close Snorkl Coach and record and synthesize their understanding in their own words. We really, really strongly believe, I've been in a classroom long enough to know that just because students feel good about the answers that they're getting doesn't mean that they really have internalized it. There's not enough productive struggle there, right? And so we are really intentional about Snorkl Coach goes away when you're recording. You don't have access to it anymore. And so really trying to get students to then synthesize. And Snorkl Coach can be toggled on or off, right? And so depending on how Snorkl is being used, if it's a formative assessment, you might toggle that off. But if there's something where you want students to have more support and exploration from the AI, you can toggle that on. Those are all the things I wanted to make sure that I covered, but we just have a couple minutes left. Did I miss any questions here in the chat or anything else that came up?
I have another question. Just how does it assign a score? So like, I mean, like with the it must have this, but like optional. Does it include those optional things like in the score? Or I guess my question is like, do you as a teacher know what how it's calculating that score?
Yeah, great question. So in that answer criteria box, teachers can define specific criteria. You could build in a more formal rubric if you like. You could say like a 4 should be this, a 3 should be this, a 2 should be this, a 1 should be this. We don't do that by default. We allow it to be a little bit looser around students should give a thorough explanation in response to this question and then meet these criteria. And so that's sort of the lens through which we approach that. It's more of a comprehensive view of evaluation as opposed to a rubric view. Yeah. It's a great question, though. It's an interesting one because you can often tell what someone is teaching when they ask the question about rubrics. Oftentimes, if it is a math teacher or science teacher where the rubrics aren't as commonly used, they're like, I don't need to adjust this at all. And if it's an English teacher or a world language teacher where they use rubrics really commonly, there's oftentimes more desire to sort of customize that. So you certainly can insert more criteria there, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, about what you want it to look for. And then we've also experimented with some other ways that we might adopt that in the future for more control of that. Yeah. Michaela, no, thanks for joining us. So at the beginning we did intros since we were so small, but we haven't missed you all. Good to have you here. Any questions that you all have?
I have one. Is there a collaboration feature where, student A and student B are both participating in the same Snorkl, or is it not possible?
Great question. There's nothing that will allow students to simultaneously record on the same whiteboard. But there's I think two things that one feature that is in there is you can allow students to actually see each other's whiteboards after they've submitted, give each other comments and feedback, and actually record comments and feedback to each other. So that is an option. That can be toggled on or off by the teacher, but it does allow for some of that sort of more back and forth social component. The other thing that I've seen teachers do is they've had two students sit at a computer together, sit at a Chromebook or an iPad together, and actually work on that same Snorkl canvas together, and even talk out loud. And Snorkl will understand, follow their conversation. What it won't do is it won't differentiate the feedback. Student A said this, student B said that. It's just going to group it all together to one large chunk of feedback. But it is one way to think of Snorkl as a partner for like a think, pair, share with some feedback on top of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Anything else? Well, our website is snorkl.app, snorkl.app. I invite you to check it out, sign up for a free account. Reach out to me if we can support you at all. Happy to jump on a call, talk about how we can set you up with some more access and support you with snorkeling. So thanks again for joining. I'll stick around if there's any other questions, but I appreciate y'all joining today.